I'm Realtor Deb Tomorrow, and this is At Home in Bloomington, brought to you by Karen Rassel, Ruoff Home Mortgage. We profile the people, places, and resources that make Bloomington, Bloomington, and help you live your best life. At Home in Bloomington.
Well, hello, and welcome to another exciting edition of At Home in Bloomington. Should we share what we were talking about before I hit record?
We can. I don't care. I was like, have you ever felt like there's something maybe just kind of took housing up inside your ear canal?
And my answer was no, I haven't.
My ear tickles for some reason today, and I can't shake that feeling. And then I always hear those stories, those horror stories. People are sleeping, and maybe they sleep with their mouth open, and spiders, all of that stuff. So that's the first thought.
So out of the goodness of her heart and for the sake of the show, Karen has agreed to continue, despite the fact that she thinks something is crawling and growing and probably giving birth inside her ear, but only with a promise from me that if I see something coming out, I will let her know.
Yeah.
That's the week we've all been having.
I have tools in my car.
Right? Our guests can help. A needle nose pliers. There you go. All right. We got your back then. It's
all
fine.
Right. Thank you.
All right. So that was.
I don't feel better, but I appreciate it.
Okay. Excellent. So that was, if you were new to the show. If you're not new to the show, you know who's talking. So I'm Realtor Deb Tomorrow, and I'm your host, and I'm here with the bug lady, Karen Rassel, best damn lender and slightly paranoid in the state of Indiana.
Hi.
Yeah? Hi. Okay. Well, your hair looks good again, so there's that.
Oh, thanks. Stay straight. Thanks.
Okay. So for the second show in a row, I know this is a big letdown because I think everybody looks forward to let's surprise Karen with who the show guest is.
I think everyone's on pins and needles.
Pins and needles
Wednesdays.
On how we are going to reveal to Karen.
Yeah.
And for the second show in a row, she knows who our guest is.
I know.
So no big reveal, but I do have a quiz.
Okay.
So there you go. So our guest today is Ryan Zaricki, who is the owner of Whole Sun Designs, which is solar. So we're going to get to him in a second, but we're going to let him watch us talk so that he can kind of get comfortable.
Okay.
People always, I think people come in and, I mean, I've done so many of these. This is episode 59 or something that
it is.
It doesn't matter. I'm like, that's cool. It's fine. Like, I'm kind of laid back about it. And I guess you do it enough and, I'm skipping all around today because I had way too much caffeine this morning. But I posted something on Facebook yesterday and I said my favorite phrase, which is anything worth doing is worth doing badly. And, I've really come to embrace that. And so we just kind of go and it's fine.
You do, but think about the very first couple we did, there was still that anxiety of, okay, how's this going to go? And is the conversation going to flow okay? And then once you get over that for our guests, how
it's the first time.
And we're a little odd sometimes.
Because yeah, that's true.
I was going to say, Deb, you're making me feel super special.
Well, no, because between the first podcast that we did, The Real Estate Today, which had something like 96 episodes. Yeah. And then this one, we're at 150 episodes of doing this.
Right.
But you're right. 150 episodes ago, I was thrown up in my shoes. So we get that, and we've got some barf bags ready for you.
Yeah.
But we're gonna talk a little bit. Okay. So quiz, test your solar IQ.
Have you taken this quiz already?
I did. I got 7 out of 11, but I'm not going to make you do all 11 questions.
Should I take this as well?
And you can.
I thought this was from you.
You can no. But this is from energy.gov.
Okay.
So, it's the government. I'm sure it's legit. But it's also 4 years old. So some of this maybe. But I thought there were some interesting things in it. Okay.
Is this multiple choice?
It is multiple choice. Yeah. So if you don't get them all right, then we're just going to shut the show down. I mean, obviously you're not an expert then.
So we're going to test we're testing our knowledge of solar.
Yeah.
What was it called?
Do you remember when we did the test for the SAT with the class 101?
Yes.
And there were trick questions and
stuff.
I feel like it's kind of like that. Some of them I was all right, I can break this word down like an SAT and I can figure out the answer.
Let me get that bug out of my ear so I can actually hear these questions.
So anytime Karen gets something wrong, she'll be like, it's the bug. It's distracting me. I'm not doing all 11 questions. Okay. I'm only going to do 5. But of all new generating capacity added to the U.S. electrical grid in 2015, what percentage was solar? And your choices are 5.5%, 13.6%, 29.4%, and 17.2%.
This is all of United States?
Yeah. So the generating capacity, they increase the generating capacity. What percentage of that, because there's other ways to generate electricity.
True. And I feel like in the Midwest, in Indiana, I feel like I'm kind of tunnel vision with that. I feel like it's going to be bigger than what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. What were the
5.5?
The solar nerd in me said, as of late, it's been very significant.
Yep. Okay.
As of late, it's been more than half of new generation capacity is renewables.
Wow.
And that includes solar and wind, I think.
Okay.
So this is just solar, though, right?
Just solar.
I would venture to say it's on maybe,
5.5, 13.6,
I would
29.4, and 17.2.
I was going to say 20. I want.
You can't
20.
make up numbers. There's no E. There's only A, B, C, and D.
13 point something percent.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know.
29.4, according to energy.gov. This was in 2015. For the first time, more solar generating capacity was added than natural gas in 2015. Yeah. Which U.S. state generates the most utility scale solar power? Oh, you want choices?
I need some choices.
You got 50. California, Arizona, Texas, and Florida.
That's easy.
I feel like it's California. Mm-hmm. That was my gut.
Yep. In 2014, California became the first state to generate more than 5% of its annual utility scale electricity from solar panels. So way to go, my crazy home state where your water bills are $500. Which is why I don't live there.
The charge.
I know.
50%. That's another question.
All right.
Scores.
What does the word photovoltaic mean? This is the SAT portion of the test.
This was in my presentation, too.
Okay.
Was it?
Yeah. Photovoltaic.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. Sun-powered,
yeah.
light cells, light electricity, or solar energy.
What was the word again?
Photovoltaic. You can look right there. You can see how the word is spelled. Photovoltaic. One word.
I feel like that's the, give me the choices again.
Sun-powered, light cells, light electricity, solar energy.
Voltage and sun, what's my answer if I want to say that?
I feel like two of those are pretty close.
I think they are, but there's one that, Photovoltaic has two parts. You were getting that, right?
Yeah.
Photo derived from the Greek word light.
Yes.
And volt from the electricity pioneer Alessandro Volta. And that's exactly what photovoltaic systems do. They turn light into electricity. So the answer is light electricity.
What was that?
But I think solar energy sounds like...
It's basically the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I was going to go with the D.
Okay, let me find one.
I'm going to give that one to myself, and now I'm at 66%.
Okay, all right. Let's do one more, and let's see if we can get you up to 75.
Yeah.
Roughly how much did the cost of photovoltaic solar panels decrease between 2008 and 2015? And I think this is an interesting question for today's show. Okay, so how much did the cost decrease from 2008 to 2015 in a 7-year period? 40%, 80%, 20%, or 60%?
And would it have decreased because we've gotten smarter with how to create them?
That's a really good question to ask our guests later on in the show about costs. And
they've decreased. I'm going to say 20%.
Okay. What's your guess, Ryan?
It's whatever the highest one is.
80%.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, really. Yeah. It says, thanks in part to research funded by the Energy Department's Sunshot Initiative, photovoltaic, I'm never going to get those words out, photovoltaic solar panels have gotten dramatically cheaper over the past decade. Sunshot was created with the aim of making solar power cost competitive with fossil fuels by 2020, here we are, and has made significant strides towards that goal by supporting the development of more efficient solar cells and cost-effective manufacturing processes. So that kind of answers your question, too.
Yes.
DOE patting themselves.
Right, exactly. Look at us. Okay, so...
I'm at 50%. That's okay.
All right, I thought you were at 66. Oh, you went down. Yep, that's how math works. Okay. So, there you go. We have a lot to learn about solar energy, and that's why I wanted to do this show. Last was October, I think, we put on an event with Ryan and a couple other partners, inviting people to come and ask questions and learn about solar, because I do think there are a lot of misconceptions, and that's really what I want to focus on today, is helping people understand how attainable solar energy might be. I think it's a no-brainer, right? Everybody knows that it's good for the environment.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of benefits in that sense. But the reality of what the costs are and how do you go about doing it and how do you analyze the costs and all of that, I think there could be some clarity. So that's why we're doing this show. So thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about Whole Sun Designs and how you started.
Sure. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I guess the quick of it is I graduated. I grew up in Southern Indiana. I went to school in Terre Haute at Rose-Hulman, got a degree in engineering, moved out west, and in Colorado got into natural building, was building straw bale houses. And through that, learned all the system stuff, kind of the ins and outs of it. And that was 2005, 2004. And we were doing the guy that I was working for, Curtis, shout out to Curtis. He was doing a lot of small off-grid battery-based solar PV systems in Colorado with these houses. It was kind of a natural complement to the clientele that he was working for. And in 2008, whenever the housing market tanked, he pivoted from home building to just doing solar pretty well exclusively. And right around that time, Colorado had initiated an incentive for homeowners to install solar. So I had moved back to Indiana right about that time, but was kind of bouncing back and forth between Colorado and Indiana. And I had worked for another solar installer in Indiana for a year and a half or two. And then in 2011, the summer of 2011, I got a project here in Bloomington for a couple out on Mount Gilead Road, and that was the first of my projects with Whole Sun Designs. And pretty quickly, happy customers led to other happy customers, and being able to work for myself was great, and just kind of snowballed from there. So in that time, since 2011, we've installed about 2.5 megawatts of solar, which is a whole bunch of solar panels, thousands of solar panels. We've done about 350 systems in Southern Indiana. It's kind of our claim to fame is that we've done the most individual systems of any other installer in Indiana. And that just speaks to our focus on the residential market. Our mission at Whole Sun Designs is to empower individual homeowners and businesses to reap the benefits of solar. And we do that by focusing on the residential market and, really trying to empower individuals to take hold of their energy usage and their utility bills. I realized pretty quickly that folks like having an option to paying Duke and Vectren every month. It's not something that people had an opportunity before, and solar allows people to choose where they're getting their power from. So, and it was interesting, that question earlier, the percentage of cost drop from 2008 to 2015. I got in business right in the middle of that. Yeah. And while the DOE, their Department of Energy, their Sunshot Initiative was really important and really pushed the envelope, China getting into the manufacturing game also really drove costs down. It was simple supply and demand. Whenever they got into manufacturing panels, the cost of panels started pushing down pretty significantly. I remember really early on, we would sign contracts for like 235 watt panels. I'd sign the contract, I'd start the permitting process and the interconnection process with the utility company. And by the time I'd signed the contract and ordered equipment, maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, instead of getting 230 watt panels, I was getting 235 watt panels, and they were cheaper than what I had quoted them before. It was just the price really, really dropped. My perspective is from like 2011 to 2013.
But is that still happening with some of the trade stuff that's going on with China? Or
no, unfortunately, that's pushing the pricing back up. It's not really pushing it up as much as it's kind of plateauing it out. We have pretty well always installed American-made panels. Obviously, it's a global market, but it's just part of my philosophy and my sort of moral compass is that I like to employ people that live next door to me. And we've always, also being in the residential market, while American-made panels are a little bit of a premium. That's much easier to absorb for a homeowner than it is for a business. Whenever we're selling into commercial markets, it becomes much more about the bottom line. But, I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of really cool people that are really sort of that bleeding edge of adoption of solar. And, people see it as putting their money where their mouth is. And it's allowed us to come in at a bit of a premium for American-made panels, but just really do good work and install really quality systems.
So have you seen a change in the time that you've been doing this from in the beginning, kind of what you were saying, the cutting edge, the people who are doing it because it's the right thing to do, the people who were bringing their own grocery bags to the grocery store 10 years ago, that it was the right thing to do for the environment. And is that shifting towards that you're seeing more and more people that are doing it for the cost benefit?
Yeah. And ultimately, I started my business down in Evansville, and it was where I was from. It's where my family's at. And I really felt like Bloomington obviously is a really progressive community. And I felt like Evansville really needed a touch of that. Whenever I moved back from Colorado, I immediately started coming up to Bloomington just to tap into that progressive community. But I wanted to stay rooted in Evansville because I felt like they really needed that sort of progressive. Push. Yeah, exactly. And so I worked really hard to do that. And being based in Evansville originally, I wasn't able to sell as much solar just on the feel good, the warm and fuzzy of, hey, we're saving the world here, which is a very tangible feeling. There are a lot of people that really... we had a couple recently that literally had a ceremony whenever we were signing a contract. They felt so powerful about it that they did a little ceremony, and it was just this really special moment. And that really is the root of why we do what we do. But ultimately, the reason that we're a business and the reason that we're staying in business is because we're saving people a ton of money. Ultimately, these systems pay for themselves probably twice over during the life of the usable life of the system. And being rooted and based in Evansville, it wasn't as easy to sell to the tree huggers. It was much more of kind of middle America. And that really taught me how to sell it on the financial savings as opposed to just the warm and fuzzy feeling of it.
So we definitely want to appeal to both sides today. So can you, I don't know how you can explain it in, a 2-3 minute nutshell, the savings or how people can go about analyzing it.
Yeah. So, let's say just for easy numbers, you've got a $20,000 system. That's kind of our average system. It's steadily grown over the years, but our average system is $25,000 maybe. The incentives that come into play, the major one is the federal tax credit. So as of this year, it started dropping, but previous years it was 30%. So if you spent $20,000 on a solar array, you could get 30% or $6,000 back whenever you file your taxes. It always keeps us busy through the end of the year because if somebody gets it installed by December 31st, they get their tax credit in April. So that immediately drops the cost. Unfortunately, the way the law is written, that's starting to step down. So this year it steps down from 30% to 26%. Next year it drops to 22%. In the residential market, it goes away after in 2022. In the commercial market, it drops to 10% permanently.
Unless you write your congressman.
Yes.
Because I'm sure there's big efforts going on to extend these credits.
Absolutely. It's very political. It's sometimes seems untouchable, but the reality is the political winds blow. And if we can blow them in our direction, that may get changed. But as it stands now, that's the way it is. So initially, right off the top, you get to kind of skim that cream off the top, and that drops the cost significantly. Batteries are currently included in that, assuming that they're charged from solar array. So they did clarify that last year, and then there's also a push as of late of standalone batteries, which we can get into later. But those are eligible for the tax credit as well. From there, you're looking at utility savings. So that $20,000 system may save you $1,000 or $1,200 a year in electricity costs. We pay maybe $100 a month in electricity cost. And depending on the utility company, we can essentially get your utility bill down to about $10, the service charge to be connected. So over about 10 years, you're going to recoup the rest of that money in utility savings. Depending on how much utility rates increase over time, your utility savings can be better. There's also a carbon credit of sorts called an SREC, a Solar Renewable Energy Certificate. So essentially all of our customers become power plant owners. And because that power that they're generating and putting back onto the grid is green, they are eligible for carbon credits. It's not a lot, but it's a little icing on the cake. So there's maybe another couple $100 a year that homeowners and businesses get for their carbon credits. And that's the bulk of it.
So let me ask you, before we go to break, if there's maybe, in 10 or 12 years, you're sort of break even, what's the lifespan of a typical solar system?
So the solar panels are guaranteed from the manufacturer for 25 years. And that guarantee is that after 25 years, it'll be outputting at least 80% of its rated output. We use Panasonic, which is a premium module. Their warranty states that it'll be outputting about 91% after 25 years. So the expected life of the system is at least 25 years, if not 30 or more.
The length of your mortgage.
Right. There you go.
If you're keeping it that long.
So certainly then, if your system pays for itself in the first 10 or 12 years, then the rest of it is bonus in your pocket. So that's kind of nice. Awesome. When we come back, we're going to talk about maybe some more of the common misconceptions that there are, that people have about solar. I want to talk a little bit about meters spinning backwards. That's what people always talk about, and whether that's a reality or not. And we'll talk a little bit about batteries as well. So I've got tons of questions. So stick around. You are at home in Bloomington.
Hi, this is Karen Rastel with Ruoff Home Mortgage. Did you know that you can often save money by purchasing your own house instead of paying rent? There are a lot of perks in owning a home of your own. So contact me today at 812-606-7653 so I can help you invest your hard-earned money for yourself instead of your landlord. Ruoff Home Mortgage is an Indiana corporation licensed by the Indiana Department of Financial Institutions. This is not an offer for extension of credit or a commitment to lend. All loans must satisfy company underwriting guidelines, equal housing lender, NMLS number 141868.
This is your Real Estate Realist. Practical advice on buying and selling real estate based on my experience closing over 800 home sales. Interested in getting into investment properties, more specifically owning rentals? Take it from me, rental properties can provide a great stream of income, but they can also be a pain. So here are some tips to ensure being a landlord is as pain-free as possible. Number one, if you have a mortgage or loan on the rental property, you need to be able to afford the payment comfortably without counting on the rental income. I once had a unit get water damage just as I was getting ready to rent it. It took insurance and contractors nearly 5 months to repair. Had I counted on the incoming rent to make my mortgage payment, it would have been double disaster. Number two, landlords are bound to run into bummer tenants every now and then. Trying to handle an eviction on your own can be super stressful and time consuming. Being able to hire an attorney can be a necessary part of being a landlord. Rare, but when you need it, you need it. I coach all my clients that they need to be able to afford an attorney just in case before they purchase a rental. Number three, being a landlord is much easier if you have a village to help you. Developing relationships with a plumber, electrician, handy person, insurance agent, banker, etc. will make life much less stressful when you have an issue to deal with. So work actively on assembling your village. And number four, rental properties are not as passive an income or investment as some people say. Even if you have a property manager, you need to be involved. Drive by your properties, walk through them occasionally. Don't relinquish too much autonomy to the tenants because ultimately the property is your investment and your future. For example, we insist on mowing all of our rental properties ourselves. It's a great way to keep an eye on what's going on, be a present landlord, and be on the front edge of a lot of potential maintenance issues.
For more tips on becoming a landlord, check out my Real Estate Today podcast number 20. You can find it on YouTube, iTunes, and my website, www.athomeandbloomington.com.
My name is Brittany, and Deb Tomorrow is my realtor. She helped me buy my first home. I enjoyed working with Deb because she was patient, thorough, and made the experience fun. Deb should be your realtor too. And now back to the show.
Hey, welcome back to At Home in Bloomington. I'm Realtor Deb Tomorrow. Before we get back to our guest, Ryan Zaricki from Whole Sun Designs, I do want to throw back to episode 16, which was when we spoke with Lauren Woods about the Bloomington co-housing project. And I'm hoping that's been a year or so, or even more, I think. And there's been lots of changes.
Yeah, I think at the end of 2019, I think there was an article that they are definitely making some headway down there at that project.
Houses are going up.
Yeah.
They're happening rapidly. And one of the things that I know Lauren feels really strongly about on all of his projects, I think he's done a lot of solar projects, and he is ensuring that all of the homes being built in the co-housing neighborhood could be solar. That I assume that means like roof lines and things like that they could all easily be adapted for solar power. So want to give a shout out to that. That was episode 16 of At Home in Bloomington, the co-housing. We also did an episode on the old podcast, Real Estate Today, about co-housing that was also talked about it more in a general and global sense of what co-housing is. And then the At Home in Bloomington episode talked more specifically about the local project. So there's a couple good episodes there we'll tag too. So let's talk, Ryan, about that very thing. What are some of the restrictions or the requirements in terms of location? I know we hear a lot of people when I'm showing people homes. I just did like 2 days ago, and she said, well, I think this is south facing, so I can put solar on it. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I know that also roof lines and trees and things like that all play into it.
Yeah, in Indiana and Bloomington especially, it gets a little tricky because we love our trees, and obviously we need sunshine in order to produce solar power. So that's part of our sales process. We do an on-site analysis, a site survey on every project that we do. So we'll actually get on the roof and pull measurements and do shade analysis. Generally speaking, the ideal location for a solar array is going to be a south-facing roof pitched at about 30 degrees with no shade and close to the electrical service. But ultimately, really anything is possible. We can do east-west facing roofs. It just loses a bit of efficiency. So an east-west facing roof compared to a south-facing roof maybe loses about 15% efficiency. So it's still going to be 80-85% efficient of what a south-facing roof would be. But a south-facing roof would be ideal.
And important to note, too, that it doesn't necessarily, for rural homes, doesn't necessarily have to be the roof of the house.
Correct. Yeah, we definitely do ground-mounted systems as well. We can, if you've got acreage and don't want to put them on your roof, or your roof is shaded or not orientated properly, we can definitely do a ground-mounted system where we essentially build a structure and mount the solar panels on that. We do solar-specific ground mount racking systems, but we've also seen people do pergolas or carports.
I have a big pole barn on my property that maybe would be because it's sort of perpendicular to my house. So if one isn't facing the right way, then maybe the other one is.
Yeah, and pole barns are super simple to throw panels on. They're usually big, they're usually fairly flat, and it just makes our job really easy. So I love pole barns.
Awesome. So I thought that was an aha moment for me. I think that, it doesn't just have to be the roof of your house. And I think, I'm pretty sure that you told a story about someone who just for aesthetics didn't really want it on the roof of their house, but they were able to find, it just changed the look of the house a little bit.
Yeah, that was my dad.
Oh, okay. Hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad. Hi, Brenda.
And so where did they end up putting them?
So his wife was adamantly against putting them on the roof of the house, which was perfectly orientated south. So we put them on the pole barn, which was east-west. So we just had to add a few extra panels to make up for the loss in efficiency of them facing east-west.
Right.
But ultimately, it works fine.
So, and here's another question that I have from a realtor perspective. So we'll throw that in here. And I because it's literally number one on my list of questions. How does this impact your roof or the need to replace your roof?
Yeah. So again, that's part of our site survey analysis. We're going to look at the age of the roof. because just like your mortgage, the roof is going to last about 30 years. A mortgage is going to last about 30 years. A solar array is going to last about 30 years.
So you better die before that 30 years is up. All hell's going to break loose.
Ideally, we if it needs replaced, we do it whenever we're installing the solar. So you can roll it into the solar project as site preparation. It can be.
So you can get tax credits on your roof replacement, which is nice.
Yep.
Is there an age that you kind of say if it's less than this old, then we'll probably just go with it?
Usually about 10 years.
Okay.
That 10 to 15 year mark, it's really worth considering redoing, even if you do just the part of the roof that's under the solar array so that you don't have to pull the panels back off when you're replacing the roof.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can make suggestions.
Okay.
But generally, if it's that 10 to 15 year mark, we'd suggest replacing it.
Okay. And then my other crazy question from a realtor / insurance claim perspective, hail.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, it just seems like a silly question, but I think it's a legit one that people have.
Sure.
Are those, I've never touched this. I don't think you brought solar panels. I don't think I touched one. It looks like glass or breakable. Mm-hmm. Are they breakable?
Yes, but similar to a car window. They're made out of tempered glass.
Okay.
Usually when people ask that at Solar 101s, I'll pull out a golf ball and let people throw golf balls at the solar panels.
That would have been fun.
Yeah. So, they're designed to sit outside and take a beating for 30 years. So tempered glass, aluminum frames, all of our racking is aluminum. All the hardware that we use to bolt it all together is stainless steel. So they are designed and we're installing them with the intention that they're going to be on the roof for 30 years. Okay. And we want it to last that long.
So what other kind of maintenance is involved in solar panels as a homeowner?
Very little. The one thing that is possible is to wash them on a maybe annual basis. Many people don't just because the accessibility issue of getting on the roof. But just like a car, if you let it sit outside, it does get that film on it. So there's a local window washing company in town that has done some solar panel washing, and we've had good success with that. But other than that, there's no real moving parts.
And washing, if they get dirty, does that impact your efficiency?
It does.
Okay.
Not a ton, but some, for sure. Yep.
Interesting. All right, let's talk about the first steps. Someone is listening to this show and they think, well, I never thought that solar was going to be within my reach, but maybe it is. What's my next step?
So that would just be to reach out to us. You can go on our website, wholesundesigns.com. We've got an inquiry page where you can send us a message and say, hey, we're interested. Generally, our first request from homeowners is a copy of their utility bill. With that, we can figure out on an annual basis how much electricity you're using, and we can size a system appropriately to produce that much power on an annual basis. Generally, the solar array is going to produce a lot of power in the spring, summer, and fall, and not much in the winter time. It's always fun kicking on a bunch of systems at the end of the year, just in time for winter. And then people call me and are like, hey, our system's not. Like, give it a little time. In the spring, it'll start cranking out power. Yeah. But if you're on.
So the important thing with that is that when you're looking at your savings, you have to look at it over an entire year.
Yeah.
Because it may not be as much in the winter because there's not as much sunlight and that sort of thing, but it kind of all evens out over the course of the year.
Correct. And it does depend on what utility you're on. On Duke, they have what's called net metering. So if you're overproducing with the solar array and putting power back onto the utility grid, it's a 1-for-1 credit. Put a kilowatt hour on the grid during the day whenever it's sunny. At night, when the system's not producing, or in the winter time, whenever it's not producing much, you just draw off that credit. And it's kind of like rollover minutes. And month to month, you can build up a credit. So in the spring, summer, and fall, you build up enough energy savings so that you can, through the winter time, still offset your power. On the REMCs, it's a little different. They only credit you wholesale rate. So it's kind of you have to put like 3 or 4 kilowatt hours on the grid to get a kilowatt hour off in an equivalent manner. And we can bring batteries into the equation and store some of that power in your battery and then use your battery at night. But ultimately, on Duke, it's super easy with net metering to offset 100% of your usage over the course of the year.
So do those rollover minutes, they don't expire?
Correct.
You can keep building them up. So in December, you're fine. You've got all that you need.
Yep. They won't let us design systems to produce more than you use on an annual basis. So the idea is that we essentially break even kind of at the end of winter. And there's a little bit of flexibility in that, but they're pretty staunch in not letting us overproduce too much.
So you're not, one of the things we mentioned over break was this idea of meters spinning backwards, which in my head means, you're putting electricity back onto the grid and they're paying you for it as an energy producer, but that's not really accurate, is it?
They're not really paying you as much as they're just giving you a credit for it.
And if you don't use it, you lose it.
Well, you build up that credit,
yeah.
And then, you can throw in an electric car to use it. You can put in a hot tub.
Or just never turn your lights off for a while.
True.
Just go crazy.
But generally speaking, folks that are doing solar are pretty conscious about where, I've always said, once people start making their own power, they become much more aware of where they're using it.
Yeah.
So people tend to get more conservative whenever they get a solar array. They start thinking much more about where they're using it.
But I love that idea of getting to the point where you can even power your car with it. That's game changer.
Yeah, it's exciting. I do that now. I've got an electric car and I charge it with solar. I'm in the process of building in Bloomington, and the whole idea is that I have a roof full of solar that powers my house and powers my
You're basically
car.
off the grid, being within the grid.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. So let's talk about this battery thing, because that was another eye opener for me when we had the event a few months ago that I just didn't really think about. And I think battery technology is changing a lot as well. So it used to be you install solar systems, and if you didn't use it, like with REMC or whatever, you were just it went back on the grid, and, you didn't get much credit. And it wasn't the greatest system. And then all of a sudden batteries started coming into play.
Yeah. So if you think about the roots of the solar industry, it was the hippies in the woods in Northern California that had no access to the utility grid. And they were basically charging batteries off their car. And then they discovered solar panels. They were super expensive in the 70s. And, but they were able to get a little bit. So they were charging batteries with their solar panels and able to run some basic lights and that sort of thing. What's really gotten solar to the mainstream in that sort of 2008 to 2015 time frame is that we've eliminated the batteries out of the equation and done what's called grid tied, where we tie the systems to the utility grid, and then that excess power produced by the solar panels is put back onto the grid so that the grid sort of acts as a storage of sorts, right? And it's starting to come back full circle. We essentially all carry around a lithium ion battery in our pocket with our cell phones and our laptops. As that technology scales, they've started incorporating into electric cars and then home appliance battery storage systems, right? So that incorporating batteries back into the equation just gives us more flexibility in what we can do with these resources. If we wanted to be standalone, we could cut the cord. But generally speaking, that's a pretty intensive thing. A lot of people say they want to be off grid, but that means you have to have a really big battery because you're essentially designing it for the winter time when there's not much solar resource and your usage, especially if you're an all-electric house, is fairly high. So we do what's called grid tied with battery backup. Some people do it just for the peace of mind of having power whenever the utility grid is down. We used to just recommend that folks get a generator.
Yeah.
It's fairly inexpensive. It's fairly easy. But as batteries get cheaper, it's become a viable option. If you already have solar, to throw in a battery, and you get a lot of peace of mind knowing that you've got some storage so that you can keep the beers cold whenever the grid's
Yeah, my
down.
power was down for half a day on Saturday.
Yeah.
We had a tree. It was real windy, and we had a tree fall on power line right by the house. And and we have a gas powered generator that we pull out and plug into a few key things just to kind of keep us going.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely give a shout out to the linemen and women that are out there working on the lines.
Yeah.
The utilities are really good about getting power back up and running, so outages aren't super common, but again, a little peace of mind goes a long way. The other thing that's coming into play with batteries is that it just gives us a lot of flexibility on what we can do. Like Karen, you're on the REMC, so you're not getting that incentive to put power onto the grid. So if we were to throw a battery into the equation, we can store your excess power in the battery. You can keep that all on site, and you can run off a battery at night. One of the local REMCs used to have what's called a time of use rate, where they delineate between on-peak and off-peak pricing. Mm-hmm. Basically, whenever they have a really high demand for electricity, imagine people coming home from work at, say, 5 o'clock, and everybody comes home. Yeah. Plugs in devices, starts cooking dinner, takes hot showers. Or 110-degree
day with all the ACs running, yeah.
Yep. So they're starting to charge more money for power that's used during those times, and they will actually give us a premium when we're putting power onto the grid during those peak times. So they recognize that kilowatt hours put onto the grid during those times is more valuable. Mm-hmm. So we can program the systems to dump the battery capacity onto the grid during those peak times and make
the most for it.
Yep, make it financially feasible it creates more of a financial incentive for homeowners to do a battery-based system.
So I think the general gist of what I'm getting out of today is there are lots of sort of ins and outs and not tricks of the trade, but there are ways to really maximize the system. And I know from the first time that I ever sat down with Ryan and just, we sat across the table and I was like, tell me what I need to know, because I have no idea. And I felt like as a realtor, I needed to be a little more educated about solar. What I've understood and learned is that you need an expert to guide you through that process of the solar to help you. And I feel like that's what Whole Sun Designs does, is they look at your individual situation and then they help you design a system, or they design the system for you and advise you on the best way to get the most, whether that's batteries and whether that's, putting it back on the grid or whatever, putting some here, some there. One of the things we talked about that we won't get into today, but are there ways to do sort of semi-systems? So maybe you can't afford to do a whole system for the whole house, but are there some ways to do, half systems and will that balance out your bill? So there's a lot to it, but with the right people guiding you, I think everybody has an opportunity to be successful with solar.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, it's, I think a lot of that lies in our experience that we've done so many systems around Southern Indiana. And I'm just really passionate about this work and really passionate about empowering homeowners, especially to gain the benefits of solar. It's a really cool industry to be involved with. It's really cutting edge. There are a lot of different things coming down the pike with energy storage and incorporating electric vehicles. We're doing a lot of energy management stuff now, where we're watching what the house is consuming and addressing energy efficiency issues and seeing where power is going and if there are kind of vampire loads that are eating up power for no reason. Yeah. And incorporating all of that and looking at all of that in a really holistic view just really comes from experience. And it's something that we're really proud of, that we really enjoy doing. And it's exciting to kind of think about where we're headed, because it's as utilities start decommissioning coal plants because they're recognizing that solar is cheaper way to go, all of that just makes solar at a residential scale more affordable. And as we kind of add those bells and whistles with the smart home technology and integrating all that different stuff, it's really, really exciting work to be doing.
I've just been really interested, like I said, since we had that first meeting. And I had a client who moved to town and was working for Ryan, which is how, and I was like, hook me up. I need to know more. And so he did. And we sat down and we just talked, and I was like, gosh, it gives you a lot to think about. And we have rental properties and some of them are REMC, and, the energy bills there are really high. And so we've been brainstorming, like, how can we, manage that situation better? And so there's just, I think, a lot of options, and I want to encourage people to explore. So the best way to reach out is go to wholesundesigns.com. And there's a contact, and there's a lot of information on that page as well. So you can go there, and they're always happy to just sit down and talk. Are you doing any more presentations with the city or anything like that?
Likely we will. We don't have anything scheduled right now. It's pretty exciting. We've got a new sales guy, Robert, who's booked us up through the spring. So we've got a ton of work already. Normally this is kind of our slow season, but things aren't slowing down. And I think it really just speaks to how much interest there is for solar, and especially with the step down in the tax credits, it's really pushing people to jump on board the solar train. Well,
I was telling Ryan, just as I was driving over here, I was driving down like First Street or Maxwell or one of those, and I was seeing your signs in the yard. So you'll see them around town. How many projects have you done around town, do you think? Hundreds?
Yeah, hundreds.
Yeah. So, absolutely. Definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I just really want to encourage people to think about it and have that conversation. It's a really interesting concept, and I love that Bloomington is sort of cutting edge and leading the way on it.
Yeah, and in 2017 with the partnership with the Solarize Bloomington initiative, we're up here full time now. We kind of pivoted from Evansville up to Bloomington full time. I'm building a house up here and setting down roots. Yep. So, ultimately that was a recognition that Bloomington really is a hot spot for solar in Indiana. It's Monroe County has about 15 or 20% of all the systems in the state are in Monroe County. And it just really speaks to this community and their progressive nature and their willingness to really be the front runners in adopting solar in Indiana. And that's why we've committed to being up here and enjoy working in Bloomington so much.
Awesome. All right. So if you want more information, wholesundesigns.com. Thank you for tuning in. We will be back with another episode. You are at home in Bloomington.
Got a show idea? I'd love to hear it. And be sure to contact me for all your real estate needs and questions too. You can email me at deb@realrealestatetoday.com and follow me on Facebook at Deb Tomorrow Realtor. To contact Karen Rastel for all your mortgage needs, call 812-606-7653 or log on to ruoff.com and go to the Bloomington Center. Thanks to all the Bloomington people who make production of At Home in Bloomington possible. Digital guru Cynthia Hogan at Monster Digital Marketing for website design and hosting, and video genius Wes Lasher in the production house for engineering the show.